Welcome! You're listening to the Peace and Passion podcast, the place for conscious couples and individuals who want to explore aspects of their relationships as a self-growth evolution. I'm your host, Iman Iskander, and I'm a couples therapist and counselling coach on a mission to shore up your relational life with useful information and tips, as well as inspiration and ideas from the great minds of our guests, so you can skillfully and confidently and mindfully navigate the relationship with yourself and with others and with all of life and its challenges. On with the show. Welcome back, good people. I'm pleased to have you here today on this new episode of the Peace and Passion podcast. Today I want to talk to you about anger, about explosions that occur between people, the outbursts that do so much damage in a relationship. And I want to talk to you about things that you can do. Rather than smoking, there's plenty more that you can do to help you to remain calm. So this podcast episode is about stopping the outburst before it all happens and soothing yourself without a smoke. You see, it all goes back to Harry and Sally. And Harry and Sally are my imaginary couple that I use to, create stories and give you some pieces of content that hopefully you can learn from. And you see, in this situation, they've had many, many fights, and they've had terrible experiences where they've trashed each other and trashed the relationship. But unfortunately, Harry was telling me that he just can't sit still with the silence of his own mind. When I asked him to pause and to take a moment to himself, he said that silence gives him anxiety. He said, I'll implode. He said, I can tell when I'm going to fire up and I'm going to be hopeful and I just explode, and that makes me feel a lot better. And then he quietly said, well, there is another way. And you see, I smoke a lot, he said. So I go for the dopamine hit from nicotine because smoking calms me. So, do cigarettes really calm you? Is that your soothing technique, to grab a smoke? Let's talk about stress, and let's talk about some of the other options that you can employ instead of smoking, because I think you probably already know that smoking isn't that good for you. Now, if you want to smoke, of course, go right ahead. But if you're one of those people that does use the cigarettes as a way of calming, and you just kind of magically are able to be calm when you've had a cigarette, I want to kind of walk with you and understand how this calming effect takes place. And you see, I've got an idea that it's got something to do with the way we breathe when we smoke. When you use a cigarette, when you smoke, you take a big breath in and you slowly exhale. And that is the answer. The slow, long exhale. The way you're breathing is a way of calming yourself. But before we go into that, let's have a look at where the feeling of stress. We've all been there. Right? You've experienced it. You know it's stress. It's tightness in the body, a racing heart, foggy thoughts. There's a whole build-up of pressure that you feel inside of you, and it produces a burst of hormones that really infiltrate your whole body, and they flood you. And before you know it, you're ready to either fight, flight, or freeze. They're the three options that we have as human beings. You know that elevation in the heart rate, you know your breathing changes, and you're not fully present because your attention's been diverted by the stress response, probably to some faraway place. And it's a really good idea not to engage with your partner when you're in that stress state. Why? Because you're only going to trash the relationship. You are in no position to communicate and resolve your issues. So you've got to nip it in the bud before you even get there. You know the response. You know what it feels like in your body. And it's your job to stop before you start communicating from that stress state. And that means you have to find a way to soothe and calm yourself. And smoking, well, it may be the answer for you if you want to use the cigarettes because, and you know, you're responsible for your body. But I'm going to put forward another way here. People smoke for various reasons, and sometimes people smoke just because it gives them some other diversion from the emotional distress that they're feeling. There's a psychological element to it. So emotions like depression, unhappiness, fear, all that internal, intrapersonal discomfort, or the distress that's inside of the body, those emotions that are uncomfortable, feeling bad within yourself, maybe because of family issues or fights or strife or anything else, but essentially it's kind of to get away from the feeling bad. And when you turn to a cigarette, well, then it helps in some way. At least that's what people say. The other reason people smoke is, I guess, it's they have the stress response from a mental component, a mental element like over-wondering mind or unreasonable expectations they can't fulfill, time pressure, or ruminating thoughts, or just a lack of happiness. And it could even be problems in romantic relationships or the children or financial concerns. So it's a mental component. The brain is busy and it's driving you nuts, and that's when you feel the stress, and that's when you want some relief. So it's not always about a fight. People kind of use that cigarette or a way of getting emotional relief for other reasons, or from other sources, I guess. The stress comes from other sources. So we've talked about emotions. We've talked about mental elements. You see, nicotine itself, it's a psychoactive or mood-altering substance. You know that. And so when a person smokes, nicotine will enter the brain in about 8 seconds, and it causes dopamine release. And dopamine does produce pleasure and relaxation, which the body does want. And during these periods of apparent relaxation, then the body's really under stress. Why? Because the blood pressure rises, the heart rate rises, the muscles tighten, and oxygen to the body and the brain decreases. So it doesn't actually decrease stress, but it increases it. And so tobacco can rapidly relax you, and it can reduce anxiety momentarily, but it's transitory. It's not the long term. So the stress comes back and it takes hold, and it actually increases your desire to smoke and causes withdrawal symptoms. And that's the side effects of using cigarettes as a way to cope with stress. So I'm going to give you a better way. Understand how to deal with stress in the moment. That's what we're trying to do in the moment. What the hell do you do? Well, I want you to take a deep breath and employ your senses. That's the first thing. So really connect with what's here, and you can immediately relax and focus yourself by maybe looking at a favorite photo, or smelling a specific aroma that you know calms you, or listening to a piece of music, maybe even tasting something that is calming or different for you, like a piece of gum, or maybe finding your favorite pet, your dog maybe, and embracing a pet, for example. So it's about using your 5 senses, seeing, hearing, tasting, and touching, to just ground yourself, be here in the moment, so you can move the brain from the rumination and the distress to what is here. That brings you back to this moment. You could also engage in a relaxing movement. It's a quick way to kind of alleviate stress. If you are a person who can go for a walk and just slow down and take your attention away with you, then that's fantastic. Or maybe you can just get into a yoga pose, or maybe dance, or maybe go for a run, or maybe just a slow, gentle heart embrace, just yourself. Hugging yourself is some way of just giving yourself a soothing moment. You see, we're after just a moment to break the pattern of escalation, to give you the awareness that you're about to explode and you don't want to do that. So we really do need to find a way of just bringing your awareness to it so that you can choose to respond in a better way instead of entering an argument or a fight with your partner. And so far we've talked about maybe you could employ your senses, and we've also talked about maybe you could engage in a relaxing movement or some movement that will help you to relax. But the other most effective way, the one that I really love, is to take a calming breath. Breathing eases stress. Your breath is essential to your body's stress reaction. We know already that if there's shallow and short chest breaths, they kind of give you that feeling of being anxious or panicking. For many people, that's true. So we want to reverse that. So the deep breathing actually relaxes your body, especially if you're tense or nervous. Deep breathing, that's right. Long, slow, deep breaths. It assists with everyday feelings of being anxious or stressed and even for some forms of generalized anxiety. You see, the autonomic nervous system, it handles the automatic functions like the heart rate and digestion. And then the sympathetic nervous system, it regulates our fight-flight reaction. And the parasympathetic nervous system governs your relaxation response. And so while your sympathetic nervous system is constantly operating, deep breathing can assist you with removing some of that tension and anxiety. So a regulated, calm, relaxed rhythm of inhaling and exhaling is one approach to bring down the sympathetic nervous system's loudness, that kind of buzzing that it creates. So long and slow breathing is another way that you could help yourself regulate. The calmer we are, the longer and deeper our breath is naturally. So breathe deeply during difficult situations. And your neurological system regulates the breathing. The mind and body can relax by breathing in that precise manner. So how do you do that? You just stop in the moment. Inhale and notice. You might like to bring your attention to your body. You might like to observe and absorb what's here. You might want to do my favorite one, which is focusing on the breath. And as you breathe, maybe notice your body and how your tummy rises and falls. Counting your breaths could also help you if by engaging the brain in that way in a different activity. You might want to think of it as a wave. This stress response is a wave. Sometimes it gets bigger, but you can regulate it like a wave. It eventually fades. It leaves your body. And if you breathe your way through it, you're just going to ride that wave and just let it go. It will fade. So recognize the symptoms of stress in your body and then stop and do some deep breathing, long and slow breathing. And the ability to breathe properly is critical. That's why I like to talk about mindful breathing. Mindful breathing is a slow and aware way of breathing. It's focused with intention. Mindfulness can help you do the deep breathing because mindfulness is really about perceiving whatever is showing up. It could be your emotions and your physical sensations without judging them or criticizing them. So focus on your breath and allow any thoughts to slip away during this breathing. Just don't engage in them. Let them slip. Don't criticize yourself, but just let them go. Let them be, let them go. They're always going to be there, but let them go. You don't have to engage. Notice your body tensing up or your thoughts drifting back, and then you just don't beat yourself up. Let it go once again. And that's the art of mindful breathing. It's about not engaging in whatever is showing up as you are taking part in observing the breath and just sitting with the breath. So you see, even though cigarettes might give you a false sense of calm, it's just transitory. It's not a long-term thing, and it does more damage than good in your body. You know that already. Now, look, by all means, if you're a smoker and you want to continue to smoking, this is not about, why you should stop smoking. Do what works for you. But for relationships, I know that a way of soothing helps people to stay connected. A way of being present helps people to notice their own reactions and to be mindful in their interactions and to choose better responses. So if you practice the art of long, slow breathing with mindful awareness, you might just find that it infiltrates and has a ripple effect in other aspects of the relationship where you do need to be present about what you say, how you say it, how you show up, what you do. and bring your whole self to a relationship. So if you'd like to stop the outburst and learn a way to soothe yourself without a smoke, then I suggest perhaps you might like to experiment with the 3 things that we've talked about. Taking a deep breath and employing your senses in the moment to bring yourself to a grounded place. You might want to engage in a relaxing movement like a heart embrace, a slow walk, even dancing or running or a yoga pose. And finally, a calming breath, breathing to ease the stress. All right, good people. I hope you've got at least one tip out of this podcast, and I hope it serves you in your life. So take good care now. See you soon. Thanks for listening to the Peace and Passion podcast. If you'd like to stay in contact, make sure you subscribe to the show in your podcast app so you don't miss an episode. Now, if you like something here or if something resonated with you, I'd love your encouragement to keep this going. You can do that with a review, a like or a share, or just by telling someone that you think will benefit from hearing this podcast. Take good care now.